Hey YouTube, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles, and today we're going to be talking another business video about some of the insight we've learned over our vast experience, which really isn't all that vast. But we're going to be sharing with you not something about how to run your business, but some of the advantages and disadvantages to having your own business versus working a day job. And since we both currently do both, we got pretty good insight on that, right? We can tell you some of the ins and outs of doing those two things and why we would move from one to the other or not. And then we go over to Patreon. We'll kind of just expand on that a little bit more. I don't really know what we're going to do, but I'll figure it out by the time I get there. If you haven't clicked like and subscribe, please do, because we're going to bring you all kinds of good content like this, or maybe you don't like the content. If you don't, then whatever, I don't really care. I really don't. If you don't like it, you probably ain't watching by now. I was probably offended about 47 people. Let's be honest, there's like 2 people I've been doing that. So first of all, we're really going to break it down between self-employment and having a day job or having a traditional job. So let's start with some of the negatives let's start with some of the positives. I like to be a positive person. So let's start with some of the positives about having this traditional job. So if you have the traditional job, no matter what field it's in, where you go to work every day and maybe you're the guy that watches a guy dig a hole, or maybe you're a guy trading on Wall Street. I don't know what you're doing, but you have a traditional job. For the most part, and again, this isn't every job, not everything fits into a nice little box we'd like it, but for the most part, it's pretty steady pay. There's some exceptions there, like commission pay jobs, things like that, sales jobs, etc., etc. But most jobs, you put in your 40 hours, you earn this much of a check, and maybe you get some overtime. It's really steady pay. You know what you're going to get. It's really easy to set your budget. It's really easy to go, okay, I'm going to make $10,000 this month, which if you're doing that, congratulations, you got a good job. I don't. And you set your budget and you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. That'd be nice, right? The other thing that's really awesome about a job, the bennies, right? Somebody's paying your health insurance. Somebody's paying your dental coverage, your eye care, or a part of all that. Maybe you have some other benefits. Like I was talking to a dude today who had a really sweet company car that he gets to drive as much as he wants. I was kind of jealous. So you got these benefits with a job that a lot of jobs have. Not all jobs. If you're working part-time somewhere, they probably ain't giving you crap. But full-time jobs, a lot of them you're going to have. Maybe you have a retirement benefit or a 401k match. Dude, when you're working by yourself, you don't get any of that. That's not a thing, right? But when you work for somebody, that is often part of the package. The great benefits. Another advantage to a job, man, sometimes you can be lazy, right? The day the boss is gone, maybe you're sitting there smoking and joking, and you're not really doing much of anything. You get just enough done to get by. We all know people who do that every day. Let's be honest, all of us with a job have probably been guilty of that at least once or twice in our career. You got that day, you just kind of mail it in. You may have other days where you kill it. But you have that ability to be lazy, and it really ain't going to have a huge effect on anything in most jobs, right? Another thing is, man, you have a lot less responsibility. When I go to a job, I have this part I do over this bigger picture. This is what my responsibility is, and it all should come together. Some other person has the responsibility for looking over all of it. You don't have that much responsibility. Now, that being said, some jobs are different. Obviously, in my day job line of work, there can be quite a bit of responsibility. But if I'm the guy watching the guy dig the hole who's got a guy supervising me, I don't really have a lot of responsibility, right? I'm just watching a dude dig a hole. And at the end of the day, if the hole's a few inches off, get another shovel load, Bill. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Or if I'm the guy digging the hole, there's not a lot of responsibility there. It's putting the shovel in the ground. So a lot of jobs are very low responsibility. There's not a life and death relying on you, or the ability to eat or not relying on you. Not all are that way, but there's a good amount where the worst thing that may happen is, maybe some dude ordered a steak and he got chicken instead and he's pissed. Oh, okay, Karen, we'll get you your steak, right? I mean, it's not going to be that big of a responsibility or big of a thing. It's not going to be world-ending. So that can be very nice. Another one is, oh man, you ever woke up and you kind of feel like crap and you got a fever and, maybe you can poop through a screen door. Think about that if you don't know what I'm talking about. All these bad things going on. You can pick up the phone, you can call your work and say, yo, I don't feel good today. I'm not going to be in, and they're going to cover it for you, right? Most places even pay you for it sometimes. You get that sweet, sweet sick time. If you can't be there, hey man, you can't be there, no big deal, we got you. That's a great advantage to have in a job, because when you work for yourself and I pick up the phone and I call the office, it just rings because I'm not in it, right? It just like, Nobody's going to pick up and say, hey, it's cool, bro, I got you covered. You got to go in, or you got to figure it out. You also, an advantage to a job, you get that sweet vacation time, right? You know, you've been there, and if I want to take a trip with the family, I can put in for a vacation, and it gets granted, pack up the car, and I go. And the cool thing is, they still send me a check, right? I can take off several weeks a year and get paid to do it. That is awesome. That's an advantage to a job. So let's talk now about some of the disadvantages to having a job. And then we'll kind of go over the self-employment, and then I'll let you make your decision what you think is best. And that's what I'll do for Patreon. I'll tell them why we're choosing what we're choosing, but I'll tell you what we are. Obviously, you should know what we're choosing. Some of the disadvantages of having a job. When you have a job, you know, you're usually working for one of two entities, either the government or the private sector, right? If you're in the government, you're watching this big machine turn, and sometimes that's mind-numbing. If you're in the private sector, you're making somebody else wealthy. That's why you're there. Don't lie to yourself and think anything different in the private sector. If you work a job in the private sector, you're making somebody else wealthy. That's what you're doing. They wouldn't pay you money every month that isn't worth them, and they're not making more money on. So if they're paying you $30 an hour, they should be making $35 to $40 an hour off your labor, right? That's how it works. That's why they have you there. They don't have you there for charity. If they do, they're not going to be open very long. Government, a little different story, but you got to watch this big bureaucracy spin, and it's mind-numbing at times. I also marked down, if you have a job, sometimes you got to watch stupid people. And what do I mean by that? You know, there are certain people, and I am actually one of them, I don't want to be in charge of others. Okay, I don't want to have 10, 15, 20 people underneath me. I don't have any interest in really doing that. I don't like to manage people because it'd probably bring out the murderous side of me. We want to keep that in. So I don't tend to want to do that. So that means if you're like me and you work in a job, and I've been very fortunate in my line of work. So if anybody I work with is watching this, I promise this isn't in reference to anybody who currently works with me. But sometimes you have to watch stupid people. And maybe you got somebody who, you know, they are buddy-buddy with the right people. They play the right game, especially if it's a place that doesn't use, like, you know, assessment centers and whatnot. And they get promoted because they married the cousin of the boss or whatever. And now you got some guy that can't spell cat. And he's the one making decisions and telling you what to do. And you got to watch stupidity just happen. You're just stuck with it. And you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. But you just see bad decisions, and then you may be the one fixing the bad decision so it doesn't be as bad. And they're like, look how good he did. And you're like, really? Because I just saved that poor bastard's ass. That is part of having a job, is sometimes you have to watch stupid people. I've been very fortunate, but I do know others who have had that exact situation where they've had to watch stupid people. You also have to ask. You know, we just talked about that sweet, sweet vacation time, and they give you this vacation time, they give you this sick time, but you don't get to use it when you want, right? You got to ask, hey, can I not come in today? Can I go to this today, please, pretty please? And they're going to say, oh yeah, you can do that, or oh no, you can't. You know, and that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'll be honest. I've been doing it my whole career. It's part of life, and I've been told yes, I've been told no. And usually I get told I can't have that. There's a valid reason due to manpower. But it still sucks that I have to ask another entity about how I want to run my life, you know? It also comes in with like shift work. You know, when you have a job, they set your hours. There's no flexibility, right? They say you're going to come in at noon and you're going to work till 8 p.m. Well, guess what? You want that job, you work at noon and you work till 8 p.m. That's what you do. It's how it works. They want you to come in at 10 p.m. and work to 6 a.m. You're going to do it. Or in my case, for a while, it was 9:40 p.m. to 6:40 a.m. That ain't some oddball shit. But that used to be a shift I had to work at a job. So like, you know, you're going to have these weird schedules that are set by somebody else. And if you want it to be different, you have to ask. You can't make that change on your own. You can't say, I really don't like working these hours. I'd rather work noon to 8 because I like to sleep in. Ain't nothing good happening until after 8 o'clock anyway. It ain't up to you, pard. You get to do what you're told when you have that job. There's also limited growth. And you may be saying, no. I can promote at my job. My job's a big company. I can promote. I can do this, and you can. But we already talked about when you have a job, what are you really doing? If you're in the private sector, you're making somebody else wealthy, right? And if you're in the government, no matter, even if you're the head of an agency, you still have bosses somewhere, whether it's the governor, whether it's a council or whatever, which, by the way, if you want to, okay, I got to bite my tongue on that because that's going to refer back to one, elected officials. But if you want to watch, well, I was going to say, if you want to go back to number one and you want to watch stupid people, we can round you up a whole bunch of elected officials that are called Congress. You can just pick. It's like, you can't swing a dead cat, and I had a stupid person in there, I swear. There's a few that aren't, but most of them are. I think so. They're out of touch. So you have limited growth. Even if you become the boss, you're the manager or whatever, there's still people above you. I don't care how much you work at Amazon and how much you promote, Jeff Bezos still owns your soul. It is what it is. You cannot pass that. You're not going to do it. You have a guy that owns that company, or you have the president or the governor or the city council or whatever, that no matter, even if you run it, you have to answer to. So there is limited growth. There's also limited growth in salary. If you can make so much plus bonuses, yeah, there's a handful of dudes who are CEOs and making shit tons of money, but they're the exception, not really the rule, right? And then you have people who are the heads of agency who make really good money in government agencies, but they're also the exception. They're one, and they are stuck where they're at. They really can't go up much more. They're still within the parameters of you can start at A and end at F, and that's kind of where it is. Now, the other thing is, man, when you have a job, there's usually politics. If you work for a larger place, there's this office politics, and, again, we talked about the boss's cousin's niece who married, you know what I mean? There's this whole political game about being nice to the right people and all of this, and, who's really, and it's stupid, and it's dumb, and it shouldn't exist. I think it's probably worse in the private sector than it is in government, although I don't know. I've seen some government agencies that are ran that way too. I've also seen some that make policies against that and try to get rid of that as much as they can. But no matter what, there's always that politics that, well, this is my buddy Joe over here, that sort of thing. And you can't get past that all the way. And you're going to have that when you have a job. So let's say you say, fuck this, I'm tired of having a job. I don't want to have a job anymore. I am ready to go and work for myself and only myself. There's some advantages and disadvantages to that. Let's talk about those really quick. Let's start with the disadvantage so that way we can end on a positive note, because I like to end on a positive. When you work for yourself and only yourself, you have a lot more risk. You do. That's a negative side of it. And I'm going to use Kurt for an example really quick, so I kind of talked about this off camera. When he had his archery shop, it was going, humming along, him and his stepdad were running, it was doing great, and all of a sudden, Dick's Sporting Goods comes to Manhattan, right down the road. And there was a lot of angst and a lot of fear over this big box store moving in, and is that going to kill the small business? Them coming to Manhattan is completely outside of Kurt's control, right? They're coming. They bought a building. They're going to build it. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And they can obviously get better deals than the small business can because they're buying in bulk like a big box store. Fortunately, they didn't really hurt the archery shop because, well, when it comes to bow work, I'm just going to leave that one alone too from what I understand. I don't know much about bow work, but I understand neither did they. Whereas the archery shop was able to service customers and do things like that. But there's those risks that come in. There's risk of things happening to your business that are outside of your control, or you make a decision and it's a bad decision, it doesn't work out well, even if it was the best use of time, and now you're putting your business at risk and your finances at risk. So there's a lot more risk when you work for yourself. There's also, we talked about if you have a job, you could be a little lazy on that one day, and not do too much. Well, here, no work, no money. That's a negative. Man, you take a lazy day, you don't do anything, you want to take that day off, you want to go on that vacation, no work, no money. If you're not working, unless it's passive income driven business, which there are some passive income driven things, we have some passive income driven things in ours, but no work, no money. And even on the passive, if I take a long time off and I'm not doing things to keep that going and keep it healthy, guess what? No work, no money. If you aren't working, you're not going to make money. If you're not putting in your best effort, you're not going to get your best results back. That's just a fact. So you don't get to be lazy. You don't get to take as much time off. And when you do, you have to plan for it and understand When I take that week off, ain't nobody writing me a check. Okay, ain't nobody saying, hey, you go take that. It's cool, I got you. No work, no money. All the responsibility is yours. We talked about having a job. You can have less responsibility if you want, you know, makes you watch more stupid people sometimes. But if you work for yourself, whether it's a 1099 contractor or your own business you run or whatever it is, all the responsibility of that is on your shoulders. You know, maybe you and somebody else if you have a partner, but you are going to wear the brunt of that. That means you're going to worry about things more. Most likely, you're going to feel the pressure more, so you need to be okay with pressure. All of these things are going to be there because it's on just you. There's nobody to blame. If your business fails, you know, you can say, well, it's because of this, it's because of that, and because of this. It may be true. Maybe because Dick's moved in, or maybe because something else moved in, or maybe because of this regulation. But at the end of the day, that responsibility to try to figure out a way to keep that going and get yourself paid is on who? It's on you when you work for yourself. It's not on somebody else. You know, there's no establishment there. Another thing that I think is a negative, it doesn't bother some, but it does me, is the pay is very unsteady. It's a very famine feast thing in a lot of businesses. Some are not. I mean, it just kind of depends on the business, I guess. But with what we do, you know, when we're in baby season and we're dropping lists, we're making sales, you'll have chunks of money come in, chunks of money come in, chunks of money come in. Then you'll have not so much money coming in, and then chunks of money come in, and chunks of money, then not so much money. Think about if you go to a reptile show, you know, boom, you're going to make a lot of money. You don't go to one next month, it doesn't come in. So it's very unsteady pay. It's not like you're going to get this much money every month. It's going to do this, which I think makes it harder to budget. So for me, that's a negative to working for myself because it just causes a little more financial stresses. Some days I'm rolling in cash. Other days I'm like, I can choose between beef, chicken, or shrimp for dinner. It's whatever flavor packet I pour on the ramen. That's a real thing sometimes. But let's talk about the positives, because there are positives to having your own business. You know, and a lot of them sound kind of opposite of negatives, and in some cases that's true. One, when you work for yourself, there truly is unlimited potential. There is. The only limit is the limits that you kind of set. You know, you look at a business like this, and we've talked about the different levels of the business and where we are at and where we want to be. But if I said, you know what, I want to be a full-time corporate breeding thing, I could fill this room up, I could run that, I could pocket all that money back, I could then build a bigger facility, hire 2 or 3 people, let them run that, build another facility, hire 2 or 3 people while I'm overseeing that, or expand, or whatever I want to do. And before long, I could have like a little empire built. You know, I could, if I really wanted to dedicate my life to that, I don't, but if I really wanted to, I could build this out, grow that, and then say, okay, I could go to Kansas City now because it's a big hub. I could open up a retail shop in Kansas City specializing in just reptile stuff with all of my breeding stuff in the background just outside of town. There's something similar to that in Wichita. Actually does really good. It's awesome. Tails and Scales, you should check it out. And then I could sell out of my shop there, allowing me to make good prices because there's no middleman. I'm not buying and then reselling. And then I could expand and expand and expand and expand to where, you know, eventually maybe I got 3 stores in one huge breeding facility. And that's doable. I mean, it's possible. The potential's there. If you don't believe it, somebody started Petco, right? Somebody started PetSmart, right? Somebody has started these big box stores. They didn't just pop up out of the ground as a big box store one day. Somebody started those businesses and grew it, and they are still self-employed. Everybody else just works for them. They are the business. So the potential is truly unlimited. You're going to set your own limits based on what you want to do, though. But it is unlimited earning potential, unlimited growth potential if you work for yourself. Another one is flexibility. That depends on what you do for a living. But for me, I love the flexibility of working for myself. There's a list of stuff that has to get done. My job is to get it done. It doesn't matter if I do it 8 to 5. It doesn't matter if I do it noon to 8. It doesn't matter if I take Wednesday off because something's going on and I work extra on the weekend. It really doesn't matter as long as everything gets done and it gets done to a good level. You know, and I can put in 4 hours today, 9 hours tomorrow, 13 the next day, 2. I could put in 4, take a break for 2, come back and put in 4. I've done that before and have something to go to. So the flexibility of working for yourself, depending on your job, is awesome. Now, if you're running a storefront, you need to be open when you say you're going to be open. That takes it away. But here, flexibility is one of my favorite benefits. Another one is this, sometimes your pay is about more than your check. And I want you to think about when you run a business like this about wealth building. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, wealth building isn't about the money in your bank account always. It's about the value of your assets versus the value of what you owe. And if there's one thing that this has been very, very good at, well, we haven't put a lot of money in our pocket always from this based on our design. We have done a very good job of wealth building in a short amount of time running this business. And what I mean by that is you look at the equipment we now have. We don't owe any money on the equipment. You look at the animals we have. They're all things we could sell. We don't owe any money on our animals. You look at our facility, which is literally a house on a lake that contains good value with a pool. I mean, there's a reason we did this. There's good value in that property. We do owe on that, but not nearly what it's worth. So like we have built amounts of wealth so that if we ever said, okay, our business is done, we're tired of doing this, we're going to shut down tomorrow, we could go through and we could slowly sell everything off, sell the facility off, and literally put money in our pocket. It's a way of saving for retirement. It's a way of building for the future. It's a way of having something to fall back on if we ever needed to or whatever could happen. So the wealth building aspect of this is great. And then we talked about having a job. You make somebody else wealthy. When you work for yourself, you can make yourself wealthy. Now, I'm not saying I'm wealthy. I'm far from that. But I am more wealthy now that I have this business than I did before I had it. That's true. I have more wealth now because of Olympus Reptiles than I had before I started Olympus Reptiles, out of one room in my house and a thought. And then it expanded over a poker game, probably with a few too many beers. So that is an awesome thing. And I encourage you, if you start this, always keep an eye on that. Because sometimes you're going to find yourself getting discouraged when you first started. Maybe you're not making the money you thought you should make, or the money comes in, you have to watch it go out on other stuff, and you're like, man, my math was off. I'm spending more than I thought I would. I'm not making as much. Then you sit back and you look at what you've built, and you see the wealth in that, and you're going to feel a little better about what you're doing, I promise. So wealth building is a big one. And now we're going to get to what I call the no's. The no's that are benefits of being self-employed. One is no boss. You have no boss. I've been fortunate, especially in case my boss is watching right now. I have good bosses. Actually, I really do like the guy I work for now. Both of them, both things I do. Although one of them is really self-employed, not really a boss thing. It's hard to explain. But you have no boss. I don't have somebody I have to ask permission from. I don't have somebody that I have to say, okay, if I have an idea and this is what I want to do and how I want to do Olympus, I think it's the best solution and I've problem solved and this is what I've come up with. I don't have somebody else saying, well, let's do it this way. Or no, I don't like that. No, it's on me. It's mine. I make the decision. I have no boss. I don't have to convince somebody. I don't have to sell something to someone. Well, I do sell things to people, but you get what I'm saying. You are responsible for those thoughts, which is awesome having no boss. Kurt wanted me to write this one, no HR. What that really means is, I like the human resources ladies at work, but there's always some red tape. Like right now, I've got to go fill out my benefit package plan every year. I think Kurt had to fill out his last name with another last name, which he had to write not available because he doesn't have another last name. But they wanted him to write that in there. Why? I mean, there's so many little red tape rules that human resources has to make sure everybody follows. So you have to go there and deal with that. You don't have the red tape. You're not dealing with that stupidity, which it is. It's government stupidity on a lot of it. I mean, they also help you if you've got questions about your benefit package and making sure things are up and up. We need HR in a big business. But when you work for yourself, you ain't got to deal with HR. You're not, unless you have a big business, then you're hiring the HR and they have to deal with you, which is probably better than you having to deal with them. Unless maybe, it depends on who you are. Another one is, I said no stupid policy. We've all had jobs with a stupid policy. They're usually named after somebody. McDonald's has policy how hot the coffee can be because some lady burned her crotch one time because she spilled coffee on it and she was upset. So there's policies about things like that. There's policies about telling you how you have to do every little thing depending on where you work. And some of them are downright dumb depending on where you are, So no stupid policies when you work for yourself, right? You make the rules. You don't have to have a stupid policy. Now, maybe somebody's working for you and they think your policy is stupid, but you don't. So therefore, there's no stupid policies. That dude who thinks your policy is dumb, I guess he should work for himself and not have a job. That's one of the advantages, right? So no stupid policies. The other one, and this is one of my favorite ones, is when you work for yourself, there's no politics. right? There's no office drama. There's nobody's doing this and getting canned for this, and nobody's over here having a relationship they're not supposed to have, and nobody's over here, you know, feeling like they got slighted because the boss's cousin got promoted. Nobody's dealing with any of that. You don't have to deal with any of that crap. There's no politics. You work for you. If you want to hire your wife, do it. Maybe you don't want to hire your wife because you can only handle her for so many hours a day. I get it. I love mine, but if we work together, we'd probably kill each other. So, you know, you are the end-all, be-all. No politics. Kurt, you can think that I left out.
No.
All right, what I want you guys to do is go down in the comments right now, and if you can think of a positive or a negative to being self-deployed, don't deploy yourself, self-employed or job, go ahead and mark them in the comments. I'd love to hear what some of you guys have to say about what you think is a positive or a negative of either one of those lifestyles. For us, we're obviously working towards being just pretty much self-employed. Maybe a few side things, keep a few things, but self-employment being the biggest thing. Just because, well, all those no's. Anything you want to say, Kurt?
No.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.